or 85% of AI use cases are being evaled by the engineer who built it saying, yep, seemed to work pretty well. If you're going to build a system that's going to be critical to the business, that's going to be important that it gets it right, then you can't do that without evals.
Welcome to Analyse Asia, the premier podcast dedicated to dissecting the pulse of business, technology, and media in Asia. I'm Bernard Leong, and today we're diving in the forefront of enterprise AI, from model development to deployment at scale. With me today is Craig Wiley, Senior Director of Product Management at Databricks, who leads Mosaic AI, the company's unified platform for production-grade generative AI. So, Craig, I'm a fan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, very quickly, we always like to talk about origin stories. How do you start your career, and what drew you into the world of AI and product leadership?
Yeah, I was working at Amazon and in the consumer business, and found that there was still a lot. While the company was data driven, there was still a lot of opportunity, and we just started diving deep on questions that were asked or on problems that we had, and very quickly I realized that kind of the business analysts I worked with and what have you, that we had questions they couldn't answer. So we started hiring economists, and then what we found was there were some questions the economists couldn't answer, and so we started hiring this new, at the time, this brand new kind of class, which was, data scientists and machine learning engineers. And this was back, in 2012, 2013, wow. And when those guys got started, they were often they weren't moving nearly as quickly as the business needed them to. And so it really became a, hey, what on that last project we worked on, what could have helped you go faster? and as soon as they would tell me, I'd grab a team of engineers, we'd see if we could help solve that problem, and then just drive the business faster. And so that's really how I got started. And then when AWS decided they wanted to get into machine learning, they came through to the consumer business to look and see who was doing this. And
sounds very much like AWS.
And I was, and they said, hey, do you want to come build SageMaker? And literally at the time, SageMaker was one sentence in a document, kind of thing.
So one curious part of the career is that you have led AI product teams at both Google Cloud and Amazon Web Services. So what are some of the pivotal lessons that you have learned building AI platforms at scale across multiple cloud providers? Because why I'm a fan of your work, because of ML operations. And it's the ability to build, train, deploy models at scale. So can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, I think I've had this amazing opportunity to follow and at times to really help influence the industry. And when we first started, it was really just hard for people to train models.
Yeah.
And SageMaker really went a long ways just to help people train models on large amounts of data. Then, when I was at Google, we really focused on model ops and how to help people build and deploy models. And what we found there was that customers were having a lot of success really getting their cycle time down and going much, much faster. And that's when I realized that if I really wanted to influence the industry, the next opportunity was to figure out how to take advantage of this connection between the AI layer and the data layer. And if we could take advantage of that connection, we could really probably get another order of magnitude acceleration on those development cycles. And that's what led, once I realized that, I think I started at Databricks 6 to 8 weeks later, kind of thing.
So that's the real reason for joining Databricks, because you want to have the intersection of data and AI together. So one thing for sure, right? Databricks acquired Mosaic AI 2 years back. So and now you're leading that team. What is your current role and responsibility there, and how has your scope of work changed after the acquisition, especially on the product side?
Yeah, so I had joined Databricks back in early 2022, and pre-ChatGPT, and I thought I was coming to build the most tabular machine learning system in the world, kind of thing. I think Databricks has that, but I was here to kind of work on that problem, and then Gen AI hit, and everybody went crazy for this technology, and all of a sudden I used to joke that I used to have meetings with the head of data science, then I got to instead have meetings with the C-suite because they needed to understand this technology, and so we started helping them, and we built a vector database, and we started building out all those components necessary, and then acquired Mosaic as a part of that goal of trying to help our customers to be able to kind of build and deploy any of these. At the time we didn't use the word agents. At the time we used the word, Gen AI solutions, and so we acquired Mosaic to kind of go after that problem, and so I've been leading product management both before and after the acquisition.
How is the transition like? Let's say before ML ops now to LLM ops. Are the problems similar or different? Because I think now you're dealing with structured and unstructured data all at the same time.
It's at some level they're very similar. I've got data, I've got some models I need to interact that data with, and I need to figure out how to deploy that in production in a stable and successful way and economical way. But in other ways, they're very different. With classical machine learning, we had statistics that would tell us precisely how accurate these systems were, whereas with Gen AI and agents, really, the vast majority of folks don't have kind of the ability to generate kind of a statistically valid way of understanding the accuracy or performance of this system. And so, helping companies figure out not just the mechanics of deploying this, but also, hey, how can you build these systems such that you can trust them has really been, I think, one of the primary challenges. To be honest, it's one of the challenges that I'm most excited because I think we're really leading the charge in the industry on that.
So I would like to lay the groundwork here, right? What is Mosaic AI and how does it fit into, say, Databricks' broader area of now going towards, say, an AI platform strategy?
Yeah, so Mosaic AI is the brand name we use to describe all of our machine learning and AI products, right? Just to simplify it for customers. But fundamentally, Databricks is an end-to-end platform, and you'll hear from others that kind of, hey, our AI platform is end-to-end, but they often mean, well, we start at training and we end at deployment. For Databricks, we start at data ingestion. And we go through the data ingestion, the data transformations, the analytics on top of that, the exploratory work that has to be done, and then also the kind of more technical machine learning or AI, capabilities. And so Mosaic is really that set of capabilities around model training and vector database and text to SQL and these kinds of things that give us the tools we need to be able to build and deploy the agents that the customers want to have.
So do you think that now, given that you also cover the ETL side, the extract, transform, and load side, and then with the data ingestion coming into the data platform to do the model training all the way to model deployment, what does it mean in practice, say, for customers thinking about Mosaic AI? Yeah,
so the best way to think about this is maybe with a simpler kind of classical machine learning. You can imagine the biggest problem that we have seen for years in classical machine learning is the fact that often the data that someone trains their model on ends up being different. They train their model on a set of data warehouse tables, and then they go deploy it on production data. And the data in production ends up looking much different than the data in the data warehouse tables. And so, at Databricks, you go to that data warehouse table, you click on the lineage tab, and you immediately see the DAG that takes you back to production. And so now all of a sudden, this concept of training, serving, skew is just gone. Because I can choose as a data scientist, do I want to use that kind of that downstream, data warehouse table, or do I want to use that upstream table that might look more like production and might behave more like production? And so, whether that's, classical machine learning or Gen AI, having the ability to understand where that data set came from and how that data set was created really is critically important in building machine learning and AI that
and
you
also
can
reduce
trust.
overfitting, right?
That's right.
Because that also you want your training data and the production data so that when the model is being trained, there's no data drifting, and then you can actually deploy as quick as possible, even with the different lineages.
That's at most companies today, the model gets built by the data scientist, handed to the ML engineer, who often has to rebuild the model for production. And so, if we can help eliminate that step and allow the data scientists to ensure they're using the right data and then just make it a couple of clicks to deploy, then we're in a much better place and a much faster cycle time for these customers.
So how does now Mosaic AI have to simplify that process now for, say, enterprises that want to build and deploy large language models? Is the process slightly different because there is also the alignment, fine-tuning piece that's actually also making the process a little bit more art than science?
Yeah, no, it is, and really helping customers transform that from art to science has been one of our objectives. But, helping companies figure out how to kind of not only, effectively, for many of these models, they're very large. It's very complex to actually to kind of run them to serve them. And so, whether we help companies serve the models themselves or whether they use some of our pre-served models that they can just hit on a per question or per prompt basis, we want to make it just as easy as possible for them to be able to do that so that they can get those agents to market as quickly as possible.
So, because I teach retrieval augmented generation and fine-tuning to all the engineers in Singapore, so that's working in the government of Singapore. So one of the questions I probably want to ask you is, between both approaches, where are the value and how should enterprises think about choosing one over the other?
Yeah, I'll say in the last year, we've really seen, a year ago, it was really a split that we saw between whether fine-tuning was the right answer, whether using RAG or something like that was the right answer. In the last year or so, with these newer, much smaller, much more economical models, the need to fine-tune has become much less frequent. And so we see RAG used a lot more commonly for whether it's building agents or chatbots or what have you. Where we do continue to see fine tuning is, many times folks are building what I kind of think of as industrial use cases or agents.
That's right.
Hey, it's going to do the same task thousands or millions of times. And if you're trying to do that same task millions of times, then fine tuning the model to do specifically that task can both have the advantage of increasing the accuracy, but also you can often fine-tune a much, much smaller, much, much more economical model. So now instead of having to hit a big model to do this task millions of times, maybe you can hit a model that costs kind of 10 cents on the dollar kind of thing in order to go after that.
Do you see more customers thinking about doing more transfer learning, given that you can now shrink the model's size are even longer, and then specifically fine-tuning will actually become much more economical? Yeah,
certainly. Some of our sophisticated customers are doing those kinds of, whether it's transfer learning or whether it's kind of fine-tuning or quantization and distillation of models.
Yeah.
But we also just see that with some of the kind of flash models or the mini models that are out there, a lot of those tasks that were so important for the economics of this in the past are just not always as, they're important when you want to move from hundreds of thousands to tens of millions.
That's
but
right.
If you're only in hundreds of thousands, maybe you could just go with the existing model that's out there.
So I think one question, because we're talking about enterprise AI, it's very important that the word security and governance come into play. How does Mosaic AI now help enterprises to deploy AI responsibly? I think it's the appropriate controls, audit, and even the safety mechanisms that come in place, right?
Yeah, this is huge, right? And for a lot of our customers, this is one of their primary concerns, particularly in regulated industries. The great thing about Databricks is that Databricks is a unified platform from data ingestion all the way through to Gen AI. And so, there's a common governance scheme, and we don't just govern tables. We govern tables, we govern, unstructured data, we govern embeddings and the vector DB. We also govern access to the models, and when you're building an agent on Databricks, you have to give that agent, at each step, you have to explicitly give it permission to this specific piece of data or this specific tool. It's not just a kind of,
Right. So you have access control up to that kind of level.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's the level of control, our banks and our hospitals need in order to your point, do this kind of with confidence and responsibility.
Yeah, that's basically most enterprises, I think, is on the top of their mind as well. Can you talk about, say, like currently, within the Databricks platform, what is some of the like core innovations or unique edges that you think Mosaic AI can actually offer to the customers?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the thing I'm most excited about is the recent announcement we had earlier this summer around Agent Bricks. And Agent Bricks is really designed. It's a way of helping folks build agents, but it really turns this problem on its head. Most of the vendors out there who are kind of giving you these more accessible or easier ways to build agents, they're really focused on simplicity. And we while we wanted to make it simple, we weren't willing to make it simple at the cost of accuracy. And so the difference with Agent Bricks is it's really very evaluation-centric. The goal is really to kind of lure the customer into an evaluation loop so that they can continue to help drive the performance of the system. And so, you're not just saying, hey, give me a RAG system on this corpus of data. You're saying, hey, give me a RAG system on this, and then let's go through some examples. And let's see whether or not those examples are good or are up to expectation or not. And if they're not, we'll learn why not. We'll adjust the system, we'll move forward, and then continue to do that until we can get to a level of accuracy that the customer is comfortable with.
So it's a bit like a reinforcement learning mechanism
for
the enterprise to actually...
Exactly that. I mean, some would say it's been reinforcement learning all along, since the beginning. But certainly, this idea of using reinforcement learning as a part of an evaluation loop is a way of really driving accuracy beyond what anyone is currently able to do.
As a former CIO myself, I look at all the different tools. So I know that Mosaic AI supports both open and proprietary models. I think how important now is model flexibility for enterprise customers from your perspective?
I think it's critical, and I think that the more models you have access to, the better. And the reason I say that is we so frequently see, in this evaluation platform that we've got, it's very easy to swap out the model, build an agent, swap out the model, and just see if the other model performs better or not. And, all too often what we see is, we may have an intuition about which model was best, but until you test them, you just don't know which one is going to be best for this. And so, having access to all of the models you possibly can is really a massive differentiator for both speed to market and accuracy. And so it's really, one of these things I constantly kind of advocate with customers is, hey, I get that you may have a favorite. We all have a favorite model, but make sure you're working and testing on all of the models.
So is there a mechanism now, say in Databricks AI platform that allows me to say, let's A/B test this particular use case, say with different, maybe it's a proprietary one, maybe it's an open source one. We just want to know what the evaluation look like.
Absolutely. If you take an agent and you run it through our evaluation system, you'll get a score and you'll see how many of the prompts and responses passed versus failed, the LLM judges we have set up. And then literally you put a new model into that agent, run it again, and you'll see a diff of here's the ones that were green before and are red now, and here's the ones that were red before and are green now. And so that makes, it was funny when new models get launched, we often hear about it, but if we don't hear about it, we immediately see it in the usage of our evaluation because customers immediately come and start hammering to see if this new model that's been released is better than the one they're using.
So any interesting customer stories or real-world use cases, I think globally, all right, where Mosaic AI is actually making a real tangible impact?
Yeah, I mean, companies like Suncorp, use Mosaic AI and the ability to kind of choose which models they want to use and what have you to provide kind of a Sun GPT experience to really accelerate the productivity of their employees. Or on the other hand, we see companies like AstraZeneca, right, the pharmaceutical company who, they had 400,000 documents that described all of their clinical trials and all of the challenges they were having, and they were able to bring these in and parse them and kind of make sense of them and make it so that they were able to chat with them and use them systematically and run queries and analysis over them in ways they just never had been able to before. So being able to derive kind of critical net new insights from this unstructured data that to them before was kind of locked away in PDFs and other such things.
So I think since you are now in town in the Asia Pacific region, what's your sense of, say, the current state of enterprise AI adoption?
It's I'll say it's really been exciting to see here locally just how both excited and how, let's be honest, aggressive the companies that I've gotten to meet with here are around building out kind of, whether it's building out platforms for their employees to be able to kind of build and deploy more of these systems, or whether it's, building, business critical use cases on top of this. It's been really exciting to get to see and hear some of those stories. And I'll say, it was, it's a real kind of breath of fresh air to get to see that this is not, this is happening global. This is happening in every corner of the world.
The problems are
right
the same
now.
everywhere you go.
Right, exactly. And the solutions also, this idea of, hey, do I have the ability to run an evaluation that really can help me, gain confidence? The CFO of your company is never going to let you deploy an agent into a critical kind of, workflow or something like that, unless they know that it's going to work effectively. And so, being able to help the customers here, use those tools so that they can start really pushing these systems into production has been really exciting.
So one interesting question, right? So now a lot of companies are now moving from experimentation to production. What kind of advice you would probably give them, say, thinking through the foundation model, the architecture for the right use case? Because it's always tricky in terms of thinking about for the business owner to work out all these different choices and constraints as well.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in something, and we've only had agents for about a year and a half kind of thing in their current form, right?
Yeah.
And so, no one has 10,000 hours. And so building these things, they have lots of knobs and dials. People think like RAG, just put some text in a vector DB and I'm done. But no, there's different search strategies you might use. Yes. There's different chunking strategies you might use. There's different embedding strategies, all of these different things. And so this is why we've built Agentbricks. The reason for Agentbricks is so that, you can come and describe the problem you're trying to solve. And instead of having to be an expert in, all these different chunking and parsing strategies, you can simply come describe the problem, bring in the data or point the system at the data, and then, we'll take care of the rest of that, and then we'll optimize it depending on your feedback over time.
So in the next couple of questions, it's going to be fast going. So I'm going to start off with the first question. What's the one thing you know about building enterprise-grade generative AI platforms that very few people do?
Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but it's eval, right? 85% of companies today or 85% of AI use cases are being evaled by the engineer who built it saying, yep, seemed to work pretty well.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because I always tell the business owners, if you get your engineers to build this, you better have the correct evaluation test for them.
Right, and so realizing the importance, I feel like I'm out, and my job is really educating folks on the importance of, hey, if you want to get this beyond, listen, if all you're building is a system for you and your buddies to keep track of the documents you wrote last year, use Databricks, use anybody, we can help you do it, others can help you do it. But if you're going to build a system that's going to be critical to the business, that's going to be important that it gets it right, then you can't do that without evals. And that's the thing that my hope is that, if 2025 was the year of agents, I hope that, the back half of 25 and 26 is the year of evals and eval and quality.
Surprisingly, I get asked a lot on that question by the engineers that I teach on the course. So what's the one question you wish more people would ask you about AI infrastructure, Mosaic AI, or anything related to building enterprise-grade AI architecture?
I think you asked it before, and it was around models and model usage. The vast majority of enterprises I work with, you walk in and they'll say, oh yeah, we're a company that uses, Model A. and we use Model A, and we only use Model A, and it's, whether that's OpenAI or Gemini or Claude or Llama or what have you, and they'll tell you, they're blue in the face, why that's the only model they can use. And, I wish more of them would say, hey, what models should I be using? Because my answer would be easy. Whichever models work best for the use case you're building.
Or maybe have a selection of models so that you can switch it out for better cost-benefit analysis as well.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So what does great look like for Mosaic AI within Databricks for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, we have our work cut out for us. I often joke that in this space right now, we often don't even know the nouns of next year's nouns. If you think back to last summer, if we had been having this conversation, we would have been talking about RAG, not agents.
True.
And now we're talking about agents, and hopefully we're talking about agents again next year, but if not, we're going to be talking about something new and exciting.
But do you think now with what Mosaic is building with Databricks, you can now do a lot of orchestration work that you previously couldn't do before?
Absolutely, right? And not only can you do it, you could do it before. You just had to build it yourself. You had to get out LangChain or the orchestrator of choice that you prefer. And we support all the orchestration systems. I think we support 18 different orchestrators or something like this. So you had to get out the orchestrator, and you had to kind of, build that yourself. With Databricks, the goal is really just to take that complexity away, simplify it, but continuing to keep accuracy as the primary objective kind of thing. And that, I think, regardless of whether it's agents or solutions or systems or what have you, our goal is going to continue to be, hey, how can we help companies steer these systems to exactly how they want them to behave?
So, Craig, many thanks for coming on the show and giving me this valuable time with you so that I can ask you a lot about ML ops, everything else, and LLM as well. So, in closing, I have 2 quick questions. Any recommendations that have inspired you recently?
Yeah, one of the things that's inspired me recently, it was a huge surprise. It was actually a conversation with a customer who's using our ability to throttle the number of tokens that their employees can use in models as lifecycle management for their Gen AI production. So they could say like, oh, everybody gets this many tokens or this many prompts. If you want to build an agent, come to us and we'll give you a larger budget. And if you want to move that agent to production, show us your evals and we'll give you even more. And the reason I say that is we didn't build those governance capabilities. We built them for security and tracking and monitoring. But I always love the creativity of I'm most inspired by the creativity of our customers when they use what we built to do something really exciting that we didn't imagine that they would use it for.
So in building technology, it's always about the people then.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
How do my audience find you, and how do they keep themselves up to date with Mosaic AI and your work at Databricks?
Yeah, so certainly find me on LinkedIn, and would love to kind of connect with folks there. Pay attention to Databricks LinkedIn as well as Databricks on other socials. Certainly follow our CEO Ali Godsi. He always has a lot to say on the topic as well. And I think between those, they'll have a broad source of great insights into how to build production agents.
So many thanks for coming on the show, and I look forward to having another conversation again.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.